Hello, ghosts and ghouls, and welcome to Paranormal Archaeology. Ooh. I'm going to work on the intro, but hi, everybody. Long time no see. I've decided to start working on content for the Paranormal Archaeology YouTube channel, and this is going to be the first episode that's going to be going up in a series where I'm going to watch and react to the what was called BuzzFeed Unsolved Supernatural and is now going and has been now Watcher's Ghost Files. I know I'm right there. I don't know why I put that in as a question. But we're gonna start all the way back 7 years ago on BuzzFeed with the show that was started with Ryan Bagheera and Shane Maddage. I just said his name wrong, and I know I did. Anyway, Ryan and Shane. But yeah, this is BuzzFeed Supernatural 7 years ago. This is the first episode where they went to locations. It is not the first episode of BuzzFeed Supernatural. So if you are new here, things that have been killing people to know. My name is Sarah. I am a retired archaeologist. I am the host of the Archaeological Fantasies podcast. I am also your host for Paranormal Archaeology. So if you wonder who I am, now you know. And I hope everybody's going to enjoy this. Again, first episode in a very long time. So if it's rusty and clunky and a little rambly, again, I apologize greatly, but as we get warmed up again, we'll get better at this. But let us proceed. So the first season of BuzzFeed Supernatural ran from 2016 to 2017. There were 7 episodes in it. Not all of them were Ryan and Shane going on location to do ghost hunting. Some of them were, the first 2, as a matter of fact, were basically Ryan. The very first episode has Ryan and a gentleman by the name of Brent Bennett, and they're talking about the Men in Black, the creepy real life, quote, Men in Black. And that was the first episode that was aired for BuzzFeed Unsolved Supernatural. Now, according to the Wikipedia pages, the fan wiki and the actual wiki, there were apparently other episodes that would have fallen into this category, but they were not official BuzzFeed Supernatural Unsolved episodes. So the Men in Black episode was the first official BuzzFeed Unsolved Supernatural episode. And it's the only one that has Brent Bennett in it. He bowed out afterwards because he just wasn't into it, right? It just wasn't his shtick. So at that point, the second episode is The Secrets of the Illuminati, and that's the first episode that has Shane in it. So that's the first episode with Ryan and Shane. Now, the dynamic here is that Ryan is a believer. He is a diehard believer in the supernatural. He is terrified of ghosts in the most adorable way. And honestly, the dynamic between Ryan and Shane is what really got me watching this show so much, because Shane is a diehard skeptic, right? So between the two of them, it's just fun watching the dynamic. The other thing that I really like is that Shane is respectful to Ryan's beliefs without compromising his skepticism. And I feel that Ryan is also respectful of Shane's disbelief without compromising his belief, right? And I think that's a really neat and important dynamic between the two of them, because I think if, as the show had gone on, if one of the two of them had started to drift a little bit more one way or the other, I feel like, I don't know, what makes the show would have been lost. Like, part of the show is listening to two guys debate whether or not something is supernatural or not. Now, whether I believe or agree with one over the other, basically irrelevant. This is just what I enjoy getting out of the show. Paranormal Archaeology, as I have been branding it, looks at how humans interact with objects and places after those things have been decided to be haunted or supernatural or spiritual in some way. And what we're looking at here with the paranormal archaeology is not whether or not something is supernatural or something is imbued or really is a haunted location, or if ghosts are real. We don't care about that here. What we care about is the human interaction with said objects and places once society or whoever has decided that whatever it is that we're looking at is supernatural. Now, the reason I wanted to start off with ghost hunting is because I used to ghost hunt. I was the resident skeptic with the ghost hunting group that I used to run with, and I really enjoyed it. I really did. It's a lot of fun. Do I believe we ever found evidence of ghosts? No. Did the people I was ghost hunting with did? Yes. And that was also very interesting, as them showing me the evidence that was convincing them that there was a ghost there, and me just never seeing or hearing what it was they wanted me to see or hear. Am I too much of a skeptic? Who knows? Maybe. The other reason I wanted to, but the main reason I wanted to start with the ghost hunting is because ghost hunting, I don't know if it's as big as it used to be. It definitely had like a heyday, and there were like hundreds of shows, and everybody has a new ghost hunting show. And even on YouTube, where this is going to be posted, there is a lot of people who are still into going places and going to other haunted locations. And there's a really annoying guy who does some really interesting ghost hunting videos that I will also be reacting to. I can't remember his name right off the top of my head, but I can see his face. But he just kind of has like a different approach to the ghost hunting than what is a more, I guess, traditional way of ghost hunting, which is kind of more, I don't know if it's so much in this episode, because this, again, is one of the first episodes where they're on location, and they go to 3 different locations in this episode. Typically, they only go to 1. But Ryan and Shane use a lot of typical ghost hunting equipment as the series progresses and the seasons, and they get more of a budget. They do bring in more sophisticated ghost hunting items and things like that, which we'll also talk about the technology and stuff as far as the paranormal archaeological aspects of those as well, because your interaction with humans' interactions with these technology devices also shifts and changes once these items can pick up the energy of the supernatural around them, right? I think in this episode they do use the mag light trick, and we'll talk about that when they get to it, but you know, this is one of those instances where the mag light becomes a channel for the supernatural. But before that point, it was just a mag light, right? And after that point, it's the mag light, right? Kind of a thing. But there's a really great article, and I will always go back to this article first, called Historical Archaeology as Ghost Hunting. It was written by Dr. April Beisaw back in 2016. And if you've never heard the episodes where I've interviewed April Beisaw in the Archaeological Fantasies podcast, and I think I interviewed her once for the Paranormal Archaeology podcast. In those episodes, she talks about how she teaches ghost hunting at Vassar College, where she teaches. I need to catch up with her. It's been many years at this point. And I'm sure she doesn't teach it every year, obviously. But she does recount using ghost hunting as a way of teaching historical archaeology to her archaeology students. And that's because a lot of ghost hunters will go into, especially a historical location, armed with a little bit of history. Maybe not all of the history, and maybe the history is not necessarily correct, but they at least attempt, right? So I will link those episodes in the description down below if people want to go listen to those and catch up on them. But I do, and I will be linking hopefully a link that'll get you the full article for April's Historical Archaeology as Ghost Hunting paper, because the one I'm looking at right now is just the summary. But that's okay. I've already read it a million times. I know what it says. So that's why I wanted to start off with A, BuzzFeed Supernatural, aka Ghost Files, and B, Ghost Hunting, because I really like it. I like ghost hunting. I think it's fun. I do believe it is a good tool for historical archaeology, for bringing the history to the people in a way that can be digested by the people. And it's not just a boring ass lecture about why this old building is significant, right? Don't get me wrong, that's important. But if I throw ghosts into it, you're probably going to remember it. The Winchester house is a perfect example of this. And that's actually one of the locations we're going to end up going to. And we'll be talking about Karen Stollznow's research into the Winchester mansion when we get to that. But I just think ghost hunting is a good way of making historical archaeology accessible to the public. And watching Shane and Ryan react to various locations and various objects throughout this show, and just seeing how, again, Shane is the skeptic in this situation. So Ryan's going in already believing these objects are supernatural. Shane goes in not believing the objects are supernatural, but the way he interacts with them has changed now that Ryan has told him that they are supernatural and they could be ghosts there. Shane's interactions with these objects change because these objects are now supernatural, even though beforehand they were just a mag light, a creepy ass doll, that kind of stuff. So this is the first episode in this series. Thank you all for bearing with me as I get my feet back under me. It's been a really long time since I've done anything remotely podcast-esque or like this style of video. So the first episode we're going to watch, this is 3 horrifying cases of ghosts and demons. This again has Ryan and Shane in it. It was uploaded to YouTube on October 26, 2016. It was the 3rd episode in the first season of BuzzFeed's Unsolved Supernatural and was the 11th episode overall. If you look at the release dates for these, it's the 3rd episode, but it's the first episode where they went to location, which is why we're starting with it and not the other conspiracy ones. Conspiracies are fun, but not the focus here. Interesting trivia, again, pulled from the BuzzFeed Unsolved Wiki. I'll remember to link that in the description down below. This episode is voted the best BuzzFeed Unsolved episode of all time. I think that's a bit much considering there were 7 seasons, but we'll find out. I don't honestly remember everything that happens in this episode, so I don't know if I would say it's the best episode of all time. The one that sticks out the most in my head is the one where I can't remember if they're at a prison or an asylum. And Ryan just starts screaming while he's on his solo investigation, and they can hear him outside of the building. And Shane looks at the camera and he goes, "I think we finally broke Ryan." That's my favorite episode. But I thought that was an interesting little bit of trivia to kind of throw out there for everybody. As I go through each one of these episodes, I will be referring to the BuzzFeed Unsolved Wiki and sometimes the actual Wikipedia, just because they are very condensed locations to find quick information about these things. As we go in through the series, though, I do plan to look at the debriefs that they start doing. I don't remember exactly what season they started doing the debriefs. Let me see if I can find it real fast. Yeah, I don't remember what season it was they started doing the debriefs. I don't usually watch those myself, but for this series, we will go over them just because in those, Ryan and Shane talk about the evidence that they found. They discuss why certain evidence was more convincing than others. Shane does acquiesce a few times on things, as does Ryan. 3 horrifying cases of a ghost and a demon. I have sped this video up. We are watching it at time and a quarter. That's honestly just to help push this show along. It's 46 minutes long, and I talk a lot. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with the reaction style videos, it needs to be transformative, which means I need to talk, and I have things to say. So if you're not into that kind of a video, this is not going to be the video for you. All right, the last thing I want to say before we hit play is that I might end up breaking this up into 2 episodes just because I know how much I talk. So if I do that, I will let you guys know, obviously. And let's go.
We're on our way to the Winchester.
This is Ghost Town.
We're going to Mexico. Terrifying Island of the Dolls. It's going to be our showdown with the demon to end the trip. What was that? Today on BuzzFeed Unsolved, we cover multiple...
All right, I lied. I'm slowing this down. My apologies. I'm also going to turn the closed captions off. I don't think we need those. Apologies. That was going too fast, so it's back down to normal speed.
Cases and visit some of the most haunted, horrifying places in the world in an effort to...
Look at little baby Ryan and Shane. Aww. 7 years ago, you guys.
Answer some questions that I've always been curious about. Are ghosts and demons real? And if they are real, can they manipulate harm, and perhaps even kill the living. Right now we're in San Jose, California at Sacred Heart Church to talk to Father Gary Thomas. In 2005, Father Thomas was sent all the way to Rome to the Vatican to learn the rite of exorcism. A movie was actually based on his experiences in Rome, starring Anthony Hopkins. Basically, this dude's the real deal. We're gonna be happy that we talked to him and had his guidance when we go to some of these places.
Yeah, I think so. We better stock up on some knowledge here, otherwise we're gonna get murdered by ghosts.
Shame. For those of you watching at home, Ryan's expressions are half the fun in this, so apologies.
You're gonna be thankful that we're meeting this guy later, I promise you. I promise
Aw.
you will regret that statement.
Like I should genuflect real fast.
First off, thank you for meeting with us, Father Thomas.
Sure.
I've read a lot about you.
Oh,
I
thanks.
really appreciate it.
Thank you.
How many exorcisms have you performed over your career?
Formal exorcisms, I've probably performed 50 to 75.
Formal exorcisms. He's saying he performed 50 to 75. Wow. I didn't think the church actually performed exorcisms anymore, but at least not here in the States, but
In 10 years.
What is the difference between a ghost and a demon?
A ghost would refer to a disembodied human soul. A demon is a preternatural angelic creature that rebelled against God.
It's not human.
No, it's not.
okay, so that's interesting. So he's connecting the concept of demons with the fallen angels, the 1/3 fallen angels from the war in heaven, the ones that were cast out. So he's basically saying, and he said angelic there. He said that demons are angels. They're just the rejected angels. Fascinating.
Their life
I don't know if all, when he's father and he went to the Vatican, so he's Catholic. I don't know if all Catholic priests believe this kind of stuff, but I mean, I guess if he studied exorcism at the Vatican, I guess that means the church is still practicing it. Now, this was, again, 7 years ago, so that would still be, this was while Benedict was still Pope, for those of you keeping track at home.
form is dying. They've been dying since the moment they rebelled. And so they are attracted to human beings for two reasons. One, because they are parasitic and they feed off our life form. But secondly, their goal is to take as many of us to hell with them as possible because they already know they've lost. I'm not trying to evangelize you.
I just got a shiver down my spine. So, can a ghost and a demon both possess or maybe influence the living?
Yes. And I've had those cases. Where are these homes you're going into?
One of them is nearby here, the Winchester Mystery House. Essentially, it's a haunted mansion. And then the next one is a haunted doll island in Mexico City. The last place is perhaps the scariest. It's a house infested with a demon. Do you have any advice for us going into some of these places?
The Sally House always confused me because I don't understand the story behind it, but we'll get to it when we get there.
Where we may come into contact with not so nice spirits.
Are we still on camera?
Yeah.
Okay. If these places you're going claim to have spiritual attachments, I would do nothing to invite them into any kind of conversation. I would do nothing.
What would he have done if they weren't recording? Like, would he have been like, hey, can you turn the camera back on? This is important. I want everyone to hear it. Or would he have been like, all right, well, boys, since the camera's not rolling now. I mean, what would have changed, I wonder?
To invite them to somehow show themselves or taunt them in any way. You don't want to create a tie with them.
So treat it like a fine art museum.
I would.
Would it be possible
would.
for you to perhaps bless some water, for something for me to carry?
Yes. Do you have something?
It's literally just a water bottle.
That's fine. I can bless it. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. In your kindness, hear our prayers, and pour down the blessing into this element, so that the health obtained by calling upon your holy name may be made secure against all attack through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you for sitting down with us, and thank you for
Yeah,
Was this helpful?
fascinating.
This
Yeah,
was super helpful, and I feel a lot better about
Good.
it.
You can tell that Ryan really believes all of this, and Shane is being very polite. That's the one thing I like about Shane. He's very polite. He could be an asshole. He's not.
It's about to happen.
Good.
Like, I just feel so comforted right now, and where we're about to go, it's going to be the exact opposite. So,
yeah.
you're not worried about that at all?
No.
No, give me a... Why are we doing this? I don't know if we got this on camera, but he told me, do not be afraid. I mean, I won't, I am very scared, but
Okay. Do not be afraid.
If anything happens, just do not be afraid. That's all you have to keep repeating. He said it a bunch of times in the Bible.
Jesus said chill.
Jesus said chill.
Said chill. Yeah, sure. All right now we're on.
I'm not 100% sure what denomination Ryan is, or if he is a denomination. I've always just figured he was default Catholic or default Christian. So I don't know. But he definitely believes in ghosts, and he 100% believes in demons. Which is kind of funny because the lore as it develops over the years is that Shane is actually, this is funny, kind of like tongue-in-cheek stuff, that Shane is actually a demon, and that his goal in life is to just torture Ryan.
On our way to the Winchester, just met with the pastor.
Got our holy water, got our tips, our demon tips.
What's going on over there? Entrevue. Bum, bum, bum. Boy, that's just a weird setting. That's just like, I've never been to the Winchester house before. And it's just like this house, this beautiful house in the middle of suburbia. Like there's like multi-story apartment complexes surrounding it, parking lots, busy roads, and then the Winchester.
This looks like Disneyland. I wouldn't be surprised if they got cotton candy in there.
Yuck it up, man, yuck it up. You're really enjoying this, but when the lights go off, this may be a little different.
Shane's right. It's very commercialized. I mean, the camera right now is taking some very good pictures that kind of show the house in isolation, but when they pull back, there's like construction going on around it, and big ass signs are like Winchester Mystery House, enter here, tours daily, kind of a thing. So he's kind of right about that.
This is beautiful.
It is a beautiful house. Now, I got to interview Karen Stollznow about the book that she put out titled Haunting America, The Truth Behind Some of America's Most Haunted Locations. And in chapter 8 of that book, she talks about the Winchester Mystery House. And she also has an article. Again, I will link that. The book I will not link. I'll link a link to the book. But you got to go buy your own copy of that. But she also has an article from the Skeptical Inquirer from 2011 about the Winchester Mystery House, where basically she talks about the story of Sarah Winchester and who she was, why she was building the house out the way she was. Apparently was very common at the time. The house was massive. When I was talking with Karen about this on my podcast, I was stunned at how big the house originally was. And then it lost everything, I think, above the third or fifth floor in an earthquake. And it was just never rebuilt after that part. But I guess it was like a 7-story or 8-story house at some points. A lot of the little details in the Winchester house, like, what is there, like 13, lots of 13s and stuff like that. Like there's 13 windows and 13 staircases and things that architecturally don't appear to make sense. A lot of those things are things that were added on after the house left Sarah Winchester's possession and became a haunted house. And other things like staircases to nowhere. Again, the house used to be like 7 stories tall or something like that. Let me check real fast. Yeah, the top 3 floors collapsed into the garden and were never rebuilt. So 3 floors of this house just were demolished under the big earthquake that hit in 1906. But so that explains a lot of the staircases that just kind of go nowhere, doors that appear to go nowhere. There used to be pieces of house there. There used to be an upper floor. There used to be other rooms that have been knocked down or removed due to damage over time. Because everybody likes a good ghost story, and Sarah was a bit of a recluse and did not like people, apparently. One cannot blame her. It was very easy to basically kind of slander her throughout her life. And she didn't make friends easily. She had a couple rivals who liked to gossip during her lifetime, you know. So the problem with the Winchester house, as Karen Stollznow points out in her book, is that people want to hear ghost stories. We love a ghost story, right? So the spiritual story and the ghosty weirdness of the Winchester house is the story that is kept alive and told and keeps the Winchester house bringing in money as a tourist attraction, which, you know, it's fine. It's a beautiful house. Preserving it probably isn't the worst thing in the world. And this kind of goes back to the ghost hunting as historical archaeology. Because the house is considered one of the most haunted houses in the United States, and people want to go and visit it. I mean, it's a destination. People go to see the Winchester house, right? So there's a reason to keep it alive and a reason to keep it going. And in the meantime, you learn a little bit of history about Sarah Winchester and just the time period and that kind of a thing. However, a lot of the stories that they tell, the ghost stories that they tell, there's no evidence to really back it up. Karen Stollznow points out that there's no evidence that Sarah even felt guilt about her family's trade. The Winchesters originally started out as a shirt making business, and that's where they earned the majority of their wealth. They didn't invest in the firearms industry until 1866. And she says the company didn't only produce guns, they also made silverware, flashlights, fishing tackle, garden tools, roller skates, and electric irons. There's no proof that Sarah ever consulted a psychic medium by the name of Adam Coons. Adam Coons didn't appear until 1967 in a book that was published by Susie Smith. Sarah did consult a realtor finding a suitable property named Ned Rambo. He showed her the 8-room farmhouse in California. She purchased the house in 1886, not 1884. And at this stage wasn't the mystery house, but a Christian Landa Villa, because the Valley reminded Sarah of the Landa Alvis in the Pyrenees. I'm sure I mispronounced those. And a place she had visited with her husband during happier times. Sarah did live during the heyday of spiritualism. However, there's no evidence that Sarah was a spiritualist. As a matter of fact, according to Sarah's personal companion and secretary, Henrietta Severa, Sarah was a practicing Christian, and Henrietta denied that Sarah was a spiritualist until Sarah's death and post Sarah's death. So not only is there no evidence that Sarah was a spiritualist, there's evidence to the contrary. Now, one could say Henrietta's just trying to preserve her boss's reputation, but again, Sarah lived during the heyday of spiritualism, so it would not have been a blow to her reputation to say that she dabbled in spiritualism, because a lot of people did, especially women. So that argument doesn't really hold water either. Now, the seance room in which Sarah allegedly communed with spirits was just a bedroom, and the bells within the room are for summoning staff, not for ghosts. And bells for summoning staff are incredibly common. They're seen in pretty much all houses from this era, because radios didn't exist yet to call. Phones and cell phones didn't exist yet, so you just rung a little bell and it summoned a servant to come do whatever it is your servant needed to do. The other end of that is that seances are typically held in groups. The idea of holding a seance by one's self, like the story is that Sarah went into the seance room by herself to commune with the spirits in there. Holding a seance by oneself would not have been common practice, if practiced at all, because it was just believed to be bad for you, like a ghost could possess you kind of a thing. So even if Sarah had been a spiritualist and had been practicing seances, she would have probably not done it by herself, just because that wasn't common practice, right? However, again, no evidence that this was a seance room. The spirit bell is probably just a staff bell. Sarah has someone vouching for her not being a spiritualist, and Sarah was a practicing Christian. That doesn't necessarily mean she couldn't have been a spiritualist. It just kind of lowers the chances by a lot. Now, as far as the construction of the house and Sarah being the one that drew up all of the instructions for the builders, Sarah consulted construction manuals and architectural journals. She had a background in interior design, landscaping, horticulture, woodworking, and construction management. Sarah was doing the thing she knew how to do and was apparently very good at. She loved architecture just as her late husband did. Instead of trying to commune with her late husband via psychic and seances, building and design brought her closer to him. That's from Stollznow's book, chapter 8. She says, for all of its weird features, the home had many advanced features and modern conveniences for that time, including steam heating, indoor toilets and plumbing, button-controlled gas lights, and 3 elevators. Also explains the strange architecture and building out of the house for the modern conveniences, right? That if you don't know these things going in, which a lot of people don't, and these would be modern conveniences, something that only the truly wealthy could afford, so not something you would see in the common everyday houses from this era, right? You've got Sarah's not communing with spirits. Sarah's communing with her own personal experiences and expertise in architecture and design, woodworking and construction. Okay. First off, that's freaking cool. Why don't we talk about that? Secondly, the house, you know, it suffered from the earthquake in, I want to say that was 1906 again. Yeah, 1906. So it lost 3 stories and several rooms around it, and they just were never rebuilt. They never rebuilt those 3 stories, and some of the houses, this is the front of the building, the front of the house was closed off due to earthquake damage. Fine. That explains a lot of the doors to nowhere, the staircases to nowhere, other strange features that look odd to us in the modern day, because in the time when the house was built, that would not have been present. And then you add in the modern conveniences, which are going to require different forms of building within inside the house to accommodate things like gas lighting, elevators, modern plumbing, and steam heating. Those would have been very strange things that needed to be accommodated for inside of this house, right? So yeah, Karen Stollznow points out that the 1916 earthquake took out the top 3 floors of the house that collapsed into the lower levels and were never rebuilt. Many of the 3rd and 4th floor levels were demolished, including an entire wing of the house. And then it was just closed off, and that's when construction stopped. She just didn't rebuild the house at that point. It wasn't she was trying to stave off death or anything like that. The earthquake did more damage than she cared to repair, and she was just like, you know what, the house as it is, it's good enough, yeah? And so that's just kind of how she lived out the rest of her life. All right, so this is the story. These are the actual facts about the Winchester house. These are not the stories and the things that we are told about the Winchester house, or any of the stuff that Ryan's about to freak out about the Winchester house. So we're gonna watch that next. All right, we're gonna watch the chunk with Ryan and Shane in the Winchester house next, and then I think we're gonna wrap up this as the first part, and then we will watch the rest of the episode in part 2. What's really going to be interesting going forward from here about the Winchester house, as far as the paranormal archaeology aspect of this, is I've just told you what the historical facts of the household are, and the explanations, the logical explanations for various aspects of the Winchester house, right? What we're going to see here, not so much with Shane, because, well, Shane is also important to the story here, but with Ryan, and I think there's a guide with them, they're going to get told all of these supernatural and spiritual explanations for the weirdness within the Winchester house. And Ryan is going to believe it, right? Shane does not believe it. However, Shane's interaction with the Winchester house is going to be different now that he has been informed that the Winchester house is the mystery house, the haunted house, the most haunted house in America, right? His interactions with this house are going to be different now as they would have been if he'd been on just like a historical house tour, because there's no way you could just go, oh, it's just a house, because it's not. It's a historical house. It's a gorgeous house. But anyway, let's watch this. Let's react to this part of it, and we'll talk a little bit more about it as we go.
Ah, man. You are full of shit if you do not feel strange right now.
No, I don't.
You're such a fucking shyster, dude. The hair on the back of my neck is standing over, and this is crazy. Right
My point exactly. Ryan is terrified already. Shane is like, eh.
now we're sitting in the bedroom of Sarah Winchester, who built this mansion as the result of a terrible tragedy. Sarah actually passed away in this very room, in that bed right there.
Hell of a bed.
It is a hell of a bed.
I assure you, in like half of the places you've been, people have died there. People have probably died in the Chipotle we just ate at.
I mean, if the house is old enough, there's probably been at least one, if not multiple deaths in that house. That's just the way of the world.
Let's just get into it.
Okay.
Sarah Pardee was born around 1840 to a very wealthy family. In 1862, in her early 20s, Sarah married William Winchester, whose father, Oliver Winchester, founded the company that made the Winchester repeating rifle, a rifle that will become the ultimate weapon of death in the wars to come.
So here's the thing about the rifle. The Winchesters invested into the rifle company. I think it was called the Henry's Rifle Company first. Yeah, so it was they invested in the New Haven's Arms Company in 1866, and that company was already making the Henry rifle, which is what Winchester Sr. apparently had modified into the first lever action rifle. But that was the 1866 model. The 1876 model, 10 years later, is the gun that was called the rifle that won the West, which is what Ryan is referring to here. I feel like the timeline about that is important, and I might be off a little bit, so if you're gonna leave a comment, please don't be nasty about it, okay? But so I feel like the timeline is kind of important, because when she married Winchester Jr., I've already forgotten his name, they weren't rifle barons yet. Yeah, according to Ryan's timeline, when Sarah Winchester married William Winchester in 1862, that would have been 4 years before, 4 years before they even acquired the company that would eventually produce the rifle, right? Again, the timeline is important. The reality of the timeline is important. What else is also important here is this history that Ryan's putting out right now. This is the history as Ryan believes it, right? And this is the history that's coloring Ryan's interaction with the Winchester house.
William Winchester, whose father, Oliver Winchester, founded the company that made the Winchester repeating rifle, a rifle that will become the ultimate weapon of death in the wars to come. In 1866, Sarah and William had their first child, Annie Pardee Winchester, but unfortunately, their daughter would die from a disease called marasmus only a month and a half later. In 1880, William's father, Oliver Winchester, passed away, leaving the company to William. But William contracted tuberculosis shortly after and tragically died in March 1881, only a few months after his father.
Oh.
That was the most disingenuous.
That was real.
Okay.
Okay, so by Ryan's timeline there, Senior passed away in 80, Junior passed away in 81. The repeating rifle that won the West didn't come out until 1875. So that would have only have been 5 years after the rifle had been in production, right? Invented and in production. 5 and 6 years there. Again, the timeline, I believe, is important here. Again, this is the history as Ryan believes it, which is important because, again, it colors the way Ryan is going to interact with the house.
Okay. Now that we've laid down the facts, let's get into the legend. William's death was almost unbearable for Sarah, who, according to legend, reached out to spiritualists and mediums in Boston to help her understand the deaths of her daughter and husband. Many believe that it was one fateful visit to a particular medium that would change her life. The medium told Sarah that her family was being haunted by the spirits of those killed by the Winchester rifle, and that her family members' deaths were retribution. The medium said Sarah's family was cursed.
But that already wouldn't make sense because the first child was born in 1866. The family didn't even acquire the rifle company, the arms company, because they made more than just rifles. They didn't even acquire the arms company until 1866. The rifle hasn't been invented yet. The rifle that is supposedly the gun that won the West, that hasn't even been invented yet. So you can't really blame the child's death on that because what is it? Proactive, I guess? That's kind of morbid, but there you go.
And that the only way to lift the curse was to move west and build a house and never stop building.
Well, I think I know the end of this story.
The good spirits would guide her on what to build, and if she continued building, she could live forever. But if she stopped, the evil spirits that were victims of the Winchester rifle would haunt Sarah forever.
If you can live forever, great. But if you have to continue to build a house that entire time, unless you're having fun, which I don't think she was.
Well, she wasn't like putting on a hard hat and like physically making the house herself. She was.
Actually, she probably was at some points. Well, maybe not the hard hat part, but Sarah, as I said, had a background in architecture and construction and design. It's entirely possible she was doing some of this herself. Like, not by herself, but she was probably working with the construction crews at the time. So, but Ryan hasn't mentioned any of Sarah's actual background. He just mentioned that she was a person who married and now she's building this weird house, right? He hasn't mentioned anything about her up to this point. She's just a mythological figure that just kind of appeared out of nowhere and is now part of this weird story, right? That's part of the problem with ghost stories and ghost hunting, like, or not ghost hunting, but hauntings like this, is a lot of times the people who are the centerpieces of those stories, they don't have an origin. They just are a lot of times. Sarah Winchester was a real person. She is documented, and there's history about her that can be learned outside of a tour from the Winchester house, right? So this whole statement here where Shane's like, building that house the entire time unless you were having fun, which I don't think she was. She probably was. She probably was having a good time.
Delegating.
Well, then that's why she didn't live forever. Because she found a loophole.
I won't argue that your logic is flawed. I just hate it because it's detrimental to my argument.
It's fine.
Needless to say, Sarah followed the medium's advice and moved west.
I like that Ryan is willing to admit when Shane kind of punches a
Where she
hole
built an-
into his theories and stuff. I like that Ryan's willing to be like, well, crap. You know, he does it frequently too, which is fine because I feel like Shane is usually pretty respectful about it. I know it irritates the crap out of Ryan sometimes, though.
8-room farmhouse in San Jose. It is estimated that 500 to 600 rooms were built, but due to her constant remodeling, only 161 rooms remain, one of which was newly discovered in October 2016.
You think the ghost just checked in every like 3 to 5 years?
Check
like,
your time
we
card.
should see if she's still building that, otherwise we gotta kill her.
However, what makes this mansion famous isn't the size or amount of rooms. It's the odd and peculiar nature in which they were constructed. It was built this way in an effort to confuse the evil spirits that were haunting and following Sarah. The walkways are narrow and twist and turn around the mansion. There are stairs that lead to the ceiling and doors that open into brick walls. And in one instance, a door known as the Door to Nowhere that opens to a sheer drop on the outside of the house from the second floor.
Okay, here's one thing I will say though. Like this, they are in the modern house right now. The modern. You can't tell me they can't get a permit to put a gate or something, a piece of plexiglass, what have you, over that door to keep people from just stepping out. Because you know somebody somewhere will try. That's just me. That's just me. Maybe there is, and it's just a really good, clear shot, and you can't see that there's glass there. But as it's on the camera screen right now, there might be a little balcony thing. It doesn't look like there is. That looks like it's just the step right off from the door. And there's like nothing between them and the pavement below. I just feel like that's maybe hazardous. But again, that's just me.
I can't imagine a ghost would get foiled into falling into these bushes down here, but
You're right.
the thought is nice.
All right, now that we've established the legend,
Wile E. Coyote right over the cliff.
let's discuss some possible alternate theories as to why Sarah built the way she did.
Oh.
One theory that explains some unfinished aspects of the house is Sarah's arthritis that affected her late in her life. One area called the Hall of Fires is a hallway lined with fireplaces, its purpose to perhaps aid Sarah's arthritis. This could provide a reason for an unfinished staircase, as she possibly saw no reason to complete it. But I struggle to see how this explains a door to nowhere.
Nobody is building a house like this because they have arthritis.
I'm saying this
That
is
not
this is a theory. I'm just stating the
No
theories.
one says, "Oh, my knuckles feel a little funny. I'm going to build a house with 500 rooms."
I hear you, man. I agree with you. I'm just saying this is a theory that people believe, and I'm relaying the theory.
Those people are idiots.
I mean, you
Do keep in mind that there are aspects of the Winchester house that have been added post ownership by Sarah. They've been added specifically to make the house seem spookier than it is. So keep that in mind. I don't know about the hallway of fire because the fireplaces are weird. But again, we talked about the stairway leading to nowhere. The door to nowhere is probably the exact same thing. There was probably something there at one point that is no longer there, obviously.
You know what the doctor says? Nothing's better for arthritis than a 2-story drop to the floor down below, right?
Right, yeah.
Another theory is that Sarah needed a change of scenery and continued to build to keep her mind occupied and off her grief.
Now that, yeah.
Sarah had enough money, she could go anywhere she wanted at any point. So one of the reasons that Karen Stollznow told me that Sarah continued to build on the house, or built the house as large as it was, is a show of wealth, which is perfectly acceptable. And also, it was a way of giving back to the community by keeping people employed. So as long as she was building, she had to employ, woodworkers and people to make furniture and carpenters and painters and wallpaperers and all that kind of stuff. So she had to hire workers to do the work on the house. And so having that house be as large as it was and constantly under construction like it was a way of kind of keeping the community employed. As big as, and also the other thing is that the Winchester house isn't the only house like this. It's just the most famous one, right? A lot of the houses from this era, from people who were insanely wealthy like this, remember, she was very wealthy. This is what they did. This is just what they did with their money.
So
Maybe she just wasn't very good at planning.
and she did that for her entire life.
Yeah, for her entire life.
Okay. Just what I'm
Hey, we all need hobbies.
Another theory comes from historian Mary Jo Ignafo, who investigated Sarah Winchester. Ignafo believes Sarah was devoted to building because she was interested in architecture. Ignafo reports that Sarah's own letters reveal that construction stopped at months at a time, despite what legend would suggest. Ignafo also explains the unfinished state of rooms as the result of an earthquake in 1906 that caused damage to the house, theorizing that Sarah simply shut down that area of the house rather than attempting repairs. And finally, she
Why did you just kind of glaze over that?
also could not find evidence that Sarah communicated with spirits.
There we go.
Although, I will say, I can't imagine communicating with spirits produces any kind of receipt.
No, nobody has evidence of that.
Okay, I'm just saying, I call bullshit on
Yeah,
that.
I agree with your calling of bullshit.
Good. I'm glad we agree on something for once.
we've done it.
I will say, though, with the whole receipt on talking to spirits, there's no evidence she was a spiritualist. So that kind of falls in the favor. I do like that Ryan went over that aspect of the theories and made it theory number 3, which is usually the strongest theory. I don't remember that happening, but again, 7 years, guys. So I'm glad that he did that. And I think it's important that he did, which is another reason why I remember really liking this show, because as goofy and as weird as it can be, they do try to give most sides of the argument. There's probably more theories out there. These are just the 3 that Ryan felt were the strongest or were the most entertaining.
We done it. We done it. Let's go home now.
But enough conjecture. Let's look at some of the spiritually active areas of this very unsettling house.
Excuse me.
Oh, this room looks like a nightmare. That's fun.
There's a few rooms in this house that strike me as, okay, this is ghost town. This could be it.
I'm sorry that the picture is so dark, guys. There's really not a whole lot I can do about it. There we go.
Huh? The way the shadows play with your mind.
Well, I didn't see something, I heard something. I heard a noise right up there. It came from up there.
Probably bats.
That's also a concern. I mean, but
Bats are no.
Ryan's also scared of bats. So even if it is a bat, he's still going to be scared of it.
this fucking guy.
One room that is
I feel like Shane is also not a bat fan. I feel like there's some kind of like night crawly thingy that he is not a fan of, because I feel like they've gone and done a couple investigations. And I almost believe it's bats, where there have been bats in the rooms and like both of them have been like, nope. And they just noped out of it.
particularly important is a room called the Blue Room, or as some know it, the Seance Room. A room where Sarah would allegedly communicate with the good spirits on a nightly basis for building guidance. The room has 3 entrances and one door that is like a trapdoor dropping into the kitchen down below. And not surprisingly, this is one of the most active rooms in the house, with reports of organ music being heard.
So the room where the door that drops into the kitchen down below, I do wonder if that's not an old dumbwaiter. Especially since it's going directly into the kitchen, like that would be the best spot for that to be, right? So it just seems like it would be the best explanation for that.
Cold spots, and people experiencing dizziness.
What is this thing doing? It's making noises.
What is... I just took out a brand new battery. I just took off the plastic from it and put it in, and it drained it all the way to 0.
This is highly unusual. I've never seen it do this before.
I'm just gonna ignore you and fix the issue.
I'm gonna lock myself in here with a ghost. I turned my flashlight off. This is horrifying. I bet Ryan wouldn't do this.
Oh, fucking come on, man. God damn it. I knew he was gonna do that. It still scared me. Fuck you. The house as a whole.
That's hilarious. I bet Ryan won't do this. God damn it, man. I knew he was going to do that. It still scared me. These two. They're like watching two brothers.
There's reports of hearing people breathing, footsteps, hearing screws being unscrewed and dropped to the floor, full-body apparitions of servants, with the most famous spirit being Sarah herself, often seen in her bedroom. Naturally, one of the creepiest and most active places in the entire house is the basement, where guests and workers often claim to see the ghost of a caretaker named Clyde pushing a wheelbarrow. Why I'm walking in here by my
Such a specific name, Clyde.
fucking self is beyond me.
Also, basements are probably one of the most haunted spaces in any household. And it's just because we humans don't like them, all right? Like, for whatever reason, there's just this universal dislike of basements, which cracks me up that we have so many of them. I kind of have this theory that the whole basement, like, phenomena goes along with the whole concept of, like, caves. And the idea that caves are portals into the underworld or just portals into the earth kind of a situation. And so a lot of cultures see caves as entryways into alternate realities or alternate spiritual realms because, you know, it's weird and it's strange and it feels different when you're inside of a cave if you've ever gone caving. I feel like basements are like the the man-made version of that. And so I feel like we've transferred a lot of that cave, those cave traits to our basements. And so, like, because we've got a basement here in the apartments I live in, and let me tell you what, it's creepy down there. Mainly because it's filthy, but also because it's underneath the building, it's poorly lit, it's damp, it smells funny. You know, there's little creatures scurrying all over the place. I mean, it's a basement. What do you want? But it's that kind of a thing. Like, I feel like that's why so many buildings with basements, the basements tend to be haunted, is just because the basement in general is off-putting to humans.
Fuck, I'm so scared. Man. Alright, apparently this is where a recurring ghost is seen.
I will say I have no idea how they didn't get lost in this building. And just looking at the basement, it's ridiculous.
What are you? Hey, man, calm down.
You piece of shit, Shane.
My mic went out, and then I was looking for you.
He's crouching in here like some kind of cave creature.
And then all I did was I went. I was just coming to say hello to you.
You're looking for me while grunting like a zombie. You almost scared me to death.
I'm telling you, they're like two brothers. At least they're laughing about it.
I'm never gonna forgive you for that.
I don't think he
Hope you're
ever
fucking
did
proud of
either.
yourself.
I thought you saw me.
Bullshit. You thought I saw you.
I really didn't think it was gonna work.
Sarah seemingly
I really didn't think it was going to work.
lived a life of solitude. She reportedly wore a dark veil at almost all times to mask her appearance. And in 1922, Sarah died at the age of 83. In the end, the questions remain. Was this just the result of a woman filled with grief? Or were the evil spirits that haunted Sarah Winchester so horrifying that they drove her and perhaps possessed her to build into her death?
She probably believed that spirits did say this to her. Whether or not that's a thing that actually happened,
So you're saying
So this is Shane. This is what I'm talking about, where even the skeptic has changed the way they interact with the story and also the house. First off, Shane would never have gone and investigated this house if it wasn't haunted. So that right there is a change in behavior simply because the house is considered haunted. And now, because of the history as Ryan has been presenting it, and the timeline as Ryan has been presenting it, Shane is basing his opinion based on that, right? So it has his opinion of whatever, of Sarah Winchester in this case, has changed because of Ryan's storytelling of it. So even the story, which are archaeological, the story itself is haunted, right? It's spiritual in nature, right? Because Sarah was communing with the spirits, or that's what Shane is taking away from this. He is saying she may have thought she was talking with spirits. And again, not only do we have no evidence that she was a spiritualist, we have evidence to the contrary through her personal servant and secretary, who said, no, she was not a spiritualist. But again, Ryan didn't reveal that information to Shane. If he had, Shane would have latched on to that probably. But not having that, Shane is now saying, well, I think she believed that she was talking to ghosts. And he says that a lot. I believe that you believe. Which is kind of where we're at with this. But it does change the way Shane interacts with the story of Sarah Winchester. If Shane had the information that there's no evidence she was a spiritualist and her personal servant said she was not a spiritualist, what would his story have been? How would his story have been different, right? Would it have changed Ryan's opinion? Okay, would changing that fact or adding that fact into the story, would that have changed Ryan's approach to the story as well? Would he have been as terrified of Sarah Winchester? Because once you find out she's not a spiritualist, having a seance room is a little strange. It's a little out of character for someone who's not a spiritualist, right? So
it's more along the lines of grief that produced perhaps.
I mean,
visions
she
of
went through
psychosis.
some pretty harrowing stuff.
Let me just ask you straight out: do you believe ghosts are real right now?
No.
Why do you not believe ghosts are real?
I've never seen one.
Okay, I mean, there's a lot of things that you can't see that you are real. I feel like
What can't I see?
you can't see gravity. That's real.
Yeah, I can drop an apple.
Fuck.
it's that I like. Yeah, but I can drop an apple.
I guess you'll just never believe me until
Look,
something
hey,
happens.
this whole entire trip, I'm ready. Hey, ghosts, tussle my hair.
I would do nothing to invite them to somehow show themselves or taunt them in any way.
Give me a little purple nurple or something. Let's have some fun. Here I am.
Regardless, the real reason behind the creation of the Winchester Mystery House will
I think one of the coolest things about the Winchester Mystery House is, depending on what angle of this house you take the picture from, it looks like a completely different building. I've seen many pictures of it from many different angles, and every time I'm like, is that the same house? Like, it's really kind of cool. It's a neat effect.
remain unsolved.
I'm so proud of her for doing this, by the way. It's really something.
You're the worst.
No, I'm genuinely, like, this is neat.
If I have to spend one more moment sitting in this chair looking at that silly face, I think I may murder you myself. All right, we're getting out of here.
Okay.
Run away!
Yeah, let's leave this house.
Please!
Checking out of San Jose,
Onward.
onward to Mexico.
Yeah, why not?
All right, we're going to pause here as far as this reaction is concerned, and because I didn't realize I was going to spend that much time talking about the Winchester house, which they do go back and revisit the Winchester house, and we'll do this all again when they go there, but that's years in the future, so that'll take us a little bit of a while to get to as well. So things to look forward to. I hope you guys have enjoyed what we've gone over here, because I really... And of course, the more episodes we do, the more we'll talk about various aspects of paranormal archaeology. I'm doing it in quotes. and just talk about the different ways that once something is haunted or imbued or spiritual, it changes interactions with it. It changes the story, it changes the history, it changes even skeptics' behavior around it. And I'm hoping that these will be a really good way of illustrating that for people going forward. Again, keep in mind, even though I did go over the facts about Winchester, about Sarah, about the timeline, even though I was going over those things, it wasn't in an act to debunk anything. It was an act to show the difference between what facts we have versus the stories that are being told. Ryan did a good job of that himself when he was giving the 3 different theories. And I think that kind of stuff is really important to have. And it's really important for me to kind of reiterate that we're not debunking anything here necessarily. I mean, it might inadvertently happen, but it's not the goal. The goal is to simply look at how people are interacting with the material culture around them once it's haunted, right? So what I'm saying is, please leave comments down below. Let me know what you guys think. Did you watch the show? What did you guys enjoy the show? Do you like the new version of it, which is Ghost Files on Watcher? However, I don't want to see people trying to, like, if somebody posts down below that, you know, like they believe in the ghost or they believe that the Winchester Museum's haunted or whatever have you, I don't want to see other people attacking those people or trying to debunk those people, just because that's not the goal here. However, if you guys want to discuss between yourselves down in the comments section, by all means, please do so. Just be respectful, I guess is what I'm trying to say here. And again, thank you everybody for kind of bearing with me during this episode, because yeah, I'm sure it's kind of rusty and it's a little rambly, but again, it's been a minute since I've done this, so I just truly appreciate that people are listening, and I hope everybody's enjoying this. Let me know down in the comment section down below. If you are on YouTube and you do have the ability to leave an emoji in the comment section down below, by all means, leave a ghost, a little happy ghost, down in the comment section down below as your emoji. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe on whichever platform you're listening on. And that's all I've got for you guys. I will see everybody in the next episode, which will be the second part of 3 horrifying cases of ghosts and demons. And I believe we're going to Mexico. I think we're going to the Island of the Dolls there. Yes, because Sally House is back in the US. So we're going to go look at some creepy dolls next. And until then, ghosts and ghouls. I need a catchy out phrase. So until next time, ghosts and ghouls, keep your flashlights close and your holy water closer. Ooh. We'll work on the outro too.